really good game, actually. Adjusted really well after the opening, and yeah. All right, what's up, King Cow? How we doing? Um, all right, so I didn't play a Carol Khan. That was another request, so I will oblige that request. And I'll try to make it the Carol Khan and not the Carol Can't. Knight c3. The two knights is actually one of the most annoying lines to play against, actually, as a Carol Khan player. It's one of the reasons I stopped making it my regular opening. Because white gets the bishop pair basically for free. And yeah, now for that bishop pair, black has a nice chain, and the pawns tend to stay on light squares to kind of block out the bishop on f1, but it's still annoying. It must be said. So yeah, so white is ever so slightly better in these structures, ever so slightly better. And yeah, I mean, I got to fight against that. So let's see. Okay, so bishop e2, bishop d6, castles. I'll go queen c7 first. Why queen c7? I want to at least tease the idea that I might castle long. And yeah, now d4. Now I'll take, because I didn't want the fork, I'll take on e4. I'll play knight f6. And again, white is slightly better with the bishop pair, but it's not necessarily super easy to prove in practice. And black's structure is very compact. And queen d3 is actually a slight mistake. And the reason for that is I have this nice maneuver where I check on h2, and then I go bishop f4, and the trade of the dark square bishops is really getting rid of that bishop pair is quite favorable for the black side. Black can avoid the trade of bishop. White can avoid the trade of bishops here, but it's not ideal. So now I can go a5, hit the bishop again. It's a nice tempo. And the king on h1 is ever so slightly misplaced because it should be protecting the f2 pawn, but it's not. And after bishop a3, I'm going to insist we make that trade. I'm going to insist. So really, if you really want to keep the bishop on the board, you could have brought it back to e1, but no one would be happy about that. But it'd be maybe a temporary home. You might go g3 first and so on. But trading those bishops, and I don't even have to take right away because I want a castle, and if I took right away, the queen would prevent me from castling. But getting rid of that bishop it's like the exchange that I want, and now I get to play against the center, and it's just easier to play black now. So yes, I'm gonna double my rooks. I'm gonna get everything nice and tidy. And yeah, black's position is all right. Queen b6 looks nice to me. Um, Just looking at provoking b3. I'm going to go h5, giving my king an escape square. Also seems reasonable to me. And it's a very slow affair where eventually you constantly have to be thinking about c5 or e5 at some point, trying to undermine the d4 pawn. It's just not easy to handle. Although it's still about equal. Like nothing has gone terribly wrong. Queen d3 might not be great though, because now I can maybe play against this pin. So now I feel like I need to play c5 or e5 here just because of the queen being pinned, and it's a question of which one's better. If c5, d takes c5, rook takes e3, c takes b6, and I don't win a rook because the bishop's protecting f1. So c5, d takes c5, I have to take back with the queen. I'm hitting the rook still. My pawn on b7 is loose. Queen c2 probably. We have more trades, and then bishop takes d1, and I'm not winning a pawn there yet. If I go e5, I'm still threatening to take, and I don't see what they can do about it. So I like e5. E5 it is. Queen f5, okay. I'm going to take on d4. And one of the key ideas is queen f5 does stay attached to the f7 pawn. Or sorry, the h5 pawn, but I could throw in g6 here. I kind of like that, actually. G6. Queen moves somewhere. Yo, I kind of like that, though. Or it does make my knight unprotected. So take, and maybe just rook takes, bishop takes. Yeah, I like going in G6. All right, so I spent a little bit too long on some of these decisions, but most of the points still stand. That I'm playing against a potential IQP in a moment. I have relatively decent control. So rook takes d4, and yeah, now queen takes d4, and everything is tidy, and I'm just a pawn up. All right, so that's a good move. Queen b7 is queen c7 is an excellent move, undermining my structure. That's a great move. And I can't defend b7 and a7. I don't want to push this one. So how do I deal with this? And rook d1 is a threat. That's a great move. Because of those things, I think I have to address this in a way that's a little bit uncomfortable. I'm going to go rook d7. And queen b2. Bring my king to g7, and I'm slightly better because the bishop on f3 is not great. But I gotta talk less and move a little bit faster because this is definitely not an easy position to navigate. So now this is, I'm attacking the pawns here. I'm attacking both pawns. I'm going to take on f2. That's a huge pawn to win. And now I'm going to try and press on the dark squares a little bit. Queen e1. Oh, I can't go queen e1 check. Hold on. Let me defend that pawn real quick. So I'm making some really weird moves. Really, I want to get my queen kind of around to a place where it can do something. And now I'm going to trade queens because my knight can swing around to c5. So pretty good defense, actually, by King Cow. Pretty good defense. I think right at the end there was... Whoa! All right, I'm discovering something that I didn't... I made my last move. I went from winning to losing. So check this out. So I traded queens being like, oh, my knight's getting to d7, it's over. This is a beautiful tactic. After knight d7, bishop takes c6 wins. And the point is that I don't have to take the bishop, but knights are notoriously bad at dealing with a pawns. So if I play pawn takes a6, my knight can't actually control one of these squares who are queens. The more fascinating detail, though, is that after knight takes c5, which you might say, oh, I'm all good now, what's wrong? Still bishop takes b7. And after knight takes e7, a6, the pawn is going through. And so that's a remarkable position, and it'd actually be winning. And the other additional detail is if the g pawn was gone, it would be a draw because my king could sit in the corner because it's the wrong color bishop, so it's the wrong color corner. So because of those things, because the presence of the g pawn and this a pawn being the rook pawn being a nuisance to the knight, it actually would be a winning position at the end, which is crazy. And what it means is that knight d7 is a huge blunder, and I had to move the knight literally anywhere else. Like knight e8 would, not anywhere else, but knight e8 would have been more palatable. Moving the king would have been palatable. So just goes to show, even till the end, there's sometimes don't accept what I say, But in general, really good game. I'd say white is always slightly better in these structures with the. Ooh, I'm talking too much. We got a new game. Um, I'll talk a little bit more while we get this one going. So I'll start with G3. What I'll say is white is usually better in those structures with the bishop pair playing against the Caro and the two knights Caro. But it's important you keep the pair. It really is, because when you don't, the undermining begins, and I think that's what you saw for most of the game. All right, D5.